We're gonna talk some hip hop today. Y'all heard that Freddie Gibbs freestyle on Flex?
Mm-mm-mm.
What did you think, Coop?
I told you he is a fascinating character. Has a has an MC. You know, even with our pregame convo about him, I was actually thinking to myself, and he has such a fascinating rap voice too.
He does.
Because
His flow and his voice don't match to me, but
no,
yeah,
it doesn't, but it works
it
and it makes
works.
sense. That's what I mean. It's fascinating because it's like, hold up, but you're like, no, but that works. And here's what I mean is that like it's almost like, well, he's from Gary, Indiana. Are we just jumping in? Is this where we're starting?
Yeah, let's just jump in.
Okay, so
Shout
he's
out to
from
L
Gary.
Bugs in the building. Shout out to everybody
First of
coming in the
all,
room. Thumbs up in the chat, get more people in the room. Go ahead.
did I ever tell you the first time I heard him?
It was on Jeezy stuff, right?
No, it wasn't actually.
Okay.
Or if it was Jeezy stuff, I wasn't privy to it. About 2010, Mike, I worked I worked downtown and I knew this chick named Gracia.
I remember you telling me this story. You can tell it again for the people out there.
Yeah, and her husband were like heads. You know what I'm saying? And this is when I was still active, Mike. This is when I was making my second joint, the one that I was getting like buzz for. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, she was literally at work. She was like, "Yo, Coop, listen to this thing." And I just heard this dude, and I mean, he was just spazzing the fuck out. And I was like, yo, I'm like, who is that? She's like, that's Gangsta Gibbs. He's from Gary, Indiana. I was like, yo, I said, them niggas, you know, my family, my dad's side of the family is from Youngstown. So, like, I've heard stories and seen some stuff in the Midwest, and I've done some traveling. I've met some people, and it's like, you know, I was like, niggas from Gary don't play. You know, she like, yeah, you know, Gracie family was from the Midwest. She was like, oh, I know. I was like, but yo, I was like, he's gonna have to learn how to make songs though, because it was like 2 or 3 minutes of him just rapping his ass off. Mike, I was like, dudes that do that usually can't make songs.
Right. Well, that's not the
You know
case
what I
with him.
mean? But man, oh man, that's what I mean. That's so fascinating about him because he's one of those rappers. He's what I like to call like a struggle, like corner rapper in terms of like how he approaches it. But his bars are like high level, but they're not like punchline bars. But he's turned into an awesome songwriter and hook writer, Mike, like an awesome one, not a good one, an awesome one. You know,
Yeah.
because it's so original and it's coming from a place. I told you, he sounds very much like a young Scarface to me, like on Alfredo. Like the perspective and the ferocity
I'm gonna get
combined.
to somebody in the chat said something about Ransom's EP. We need to talk about it. We'll talk about it Friday. We usually handle the new music part of it on Friday, and we wanted to give it a couple of days to kind of sink in too. Yeah, Gibbs is, and when I hear him on this flex joint rhyming over A. Marie's "Why Don't We Fall in Love," it speaks to the versatility we always talk about when it comes to him,
Yes.
and B, man, he always sounds hungry, man. Like he never just leans on the fact that okay, I just made Bandana or I just made Alfredo. And I like the way this rollout's going. Actually, he put out a track list here. I don't know if you can see the screen here, but I'm putting the track list on the screen. He has basically, how many tracks is this? I'll just go through it. The features on here: Kelly Price, that's interesting. He got a feature with Offset, that's interesting. We've heard the Moneybag Yo record. He got Lobster Omelet featuring Rick Ross.
Can't wait to hear that.
Feel No Pain featuring Anderson Paak and Raekwon. Can't wait to hear that.
Ditto.
Got a DJ Paul feature here, so that means DJ Paul probably did the production.
We're all in.
Jesus.
This sounds great.
Yeah. Um, Gold Rings featuring Pusha T. And then you got Grandmama Stove featuring Music Soul Child. And then he ends it out with Decoded featuring Scarface. Now, this was one of your sleepers for a possible 2022 album of the year. Based on this track list and what we're seeing and what we've heard so far, how do you feel about that projection right now?
You see his track list, right?
I'm about to put it right back up. I see it.
I like the way that track list looks, Mike. It makes me feel excited about it. Because here's what I'll tell you. There's a couple things that you need to pay attention to if you're ahead. Like, first of all, the fact that Black Illuminati is not a year old and that song is as great as it is.
And it's not on here.
I felt comfortable enough not putting it on here.
You know, and I hate to bring up another person. This is what we do in hip hop. We compare. It happens. You know what I mean? That's what they do on ESPN all day. But Pusha T did not do that. It was songs that we had heard, maybe not as long as we've heard Black Illuminati, but they were included. And, you know, and when I saw Hear Me Clearly on the track list for Pusha T's album, I kind of got worried.
I told you I didn't like that. But, and the record's still dope. It doesn't change that the record's dope. You know, it's just...
I mean, all right, it's not even about the record being dope and when it came out or whatever. It's the fact that it was actually on another project. We don't really see that too much in the digital era. We don't see out songs that are on 2 albums in the digital era. Like, you don't see the days of, you know, Slow Jam being on Kanye and Twista's album. And even in that situation, the one on Kanye's album was different than the one that was on Kamikaze. So when I saw Hear Me Clearly on 2 albums that came out damn near in the same month, I was worried. But yes, I think to your point though, the fact that Black Illuminati's not on here is scary.
No, that's scary. And here's another thing that's also scary. Well, remember I was talking about that guy that Gracie introduced me to that was like rapping for 3 minutes straight that I was wondering if he could make songs? Well, I mean, that conversation been over since Bandana at least. Bandana's what, 2018?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 2022.
Yeah.
Might be 2017, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at Alfredo, and then you look at Pinata, and it's like, well, it's actually been a minute since he dropped something that wasn't stellar. Like, think about what I'm saying. It's been a minute since he dropped something that wasn't stellar. Maybe you don't consider it to be a classic because, you know, I kind of wanted to have some what a classic is and what a classic isn't talk today.
Well, you know, before this thought leaves my mind, what about the other record with Rick Ross, Ice Cream? That was left off too.
It's ridiculous.
That song was hard.
It's not better than Black Illuminati, but ridiculous.
Bandana was 2019.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
What did he say?
He said Bandana was 2019. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
But
what year was Pinata?
Yeah, Pinata was hard too.
That's what I mean. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to say is that, well, usually when a guy does something like, well, makes an album the quality of Pinata, and then follows it up with Bandana, and then follows it up with Alfredo, well, Mike, we usually start talking about like their all-time great placement, you know, because like for me personally, it's like, well, the albums have gotten progressively better. Like, it's like it went from like 4.25, 4.5, 5.
I think in a year like this, looking at this track list, and I'm going to go back to it again. Sorry, guys. And yes, hit the like button real heavy on this so we can get more people in the discussion. We got a lot to talk about today. When you look at a track list like this, and you know the production that he normally comes across, and you look at the albums that have come out this year, it could possibly be album of the year. Now, you know how I feel. I feel like No Fear of Time is the one to beat, but in some ways it's not. In some ways it's cheat codes. And that one way is the fact that, you know, it's hard to really pinpoint how the public feels about No Fear of Time because not a lot of people have heard it.
Well, okay, so
hard to gauge the impact. That's what I mean.
I concur. Here's the thing. When you framed it as if, this is why I'm bringing up Pinata, Bandana, and Alfredo. Well, if Soul Sold Separately is the album of the year, well, no. We shouldn't be surprised at all. That's what I mean. He wasn't a dark horse, really, Mike, because he was like, it's like this. You know, when you're fucking like with Black Thought and Nas and their albums, and the season's about to start, well, that's like, well, who's your preseason MVP pick? It's like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Well, that would be like Nas and Black Thought. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah. Is he like
But
Mahomes coming in here?
huh?
Is he like Mahomes coming in here or something?
I don't know if it's that level because Mahomes, talent wise, is first of all better than Brady could imagine to be talent wise, and comparable to Aaron Rodgers, and appears to be a more big time player than Rodgers. So I don't know if that's the appropriate context for Gibbs, but I think Lamar Jackson is.
Okay, I was gonna say Lamar Jackson
because he's that type of guy that can do a little bit of everything actually from that position, and he strikes fear into people because nobody's really rhyming like this at this level except for Conway in terms of the level of aggression matched with lyrical ability.
You got him ahead, and I ain't trying to start nothing, but do you have him ahead of Benny as an MC right now?
I didn't, but then 2020 happened. Like if you're talking trajectory, like from the moment that I heard Benny, like really started hearing Benny, I told you, like when I heard Gods Don't Bleed in Brutus, I was like, oh, this guy can be the best MC in the game. And I never felt that way about Gibbs at any point until I heard Alfredo. But since I have heard Alfredo, I have thought Gibbs was closer to that than Benny was. And I'm not saying that to start anything up. I'm just talking strictly in terms of like, well, album quality and what I hear consistently bar wise.
Right.
But I feel like Benny's ceiling is actually higher. That's what's kind of amazing about what Freddie's doing. Because when we even had the conversation about who has the best rap voice, and I was like, yeah, it's probably Benny. But then I was thinking, and I would probably take Gibbs next.
Right. And I think when we had that conversation, we said over the last 10 years or something, and I think Gibbs didn't make that mark. That's why he wasn't mentioned. But I do think that, once again, back to our previous episode when we were talking about some of the things that Eminem said in XXL, making the music matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, rap skills in a vacuum are great and they're cool. But like you said, it's the ceiling thing. And when you actually make the music, that's what we're judging you on. And again, and I don't even want to pull Eminem's name out of it, but we do that with Andre 3000 all the time. When people rank him in the top 5, top 10, they're ranking him based on what they would hope a solo song would sound like, or a solo rap album would sound like from 3000, but you have to make those albums. You know what I'm saying? And Gibbs is doing the work and has done the work. And really, I think that Gibbs, in my mind, is more so on the trajectory in the conversation of like a Pusha T or something. I don't, if somebody came across, and Pusha's one of my favorite rappers, somebody came and said, you know what, I think I like Gibbs better than Pusha T. I think Gibbs could be a better MC than Pusha T. I wouldn't be mad. I would disagree, but I could understand. It wouldn't be a ridiculous statement.
Okay, so let's go to Palmolive on Bandana. Okay, so what you hear is that, well, Gibbs isn't Pusha T like bar for bar on the mic. You can go listen to Palmolive and hear it, because that's prime Freddie, that's prime Push. You know what I mean? Because that's Daytona year, if I'm not mistaken. Bandana Daytona same year. 20.
No, 18 and 19. But yeah, it's still Pusha from that era.
But prime work coming out of both of these guys around that time, because Bandana and Daytona are being released, a year apart from each other, or within a relative time. So when you hear Palmolive, it's like, oh no, Pusha's taking the show. You know what I mean? But here's the other side of it. If you told me that, I wouldn't necessarily argue with you, and I love Pusha too. It's like, well, Pusha as a solo artist does not have Pinata, Bandana, Alfredo. No.
Pusha is a standout when he comes on a record with you and he has that wordplay. He can go do things like what he did on, the posse cut on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It slips me right now.
Paul.
Yeah, So Paul. He can do things like that, still the show or whatever, but it's different when you're the solo act. We got our first super chat. I thought the super chats weren't working. Anyway, Jay Short with the super chat says, has Gibbs' legacy surpassed Jeezy's? In my opinion, yes.
I would agree.
Again, my whole thing with Jeezy, and he had a verse that everybody's talking about on this ESTG album. Um, he went for a long time. It ended out the album. But to me, and maybe I'm off course here, I feel like Jeezy had a very, very short season. I mean, he stayed around a long time. He got a lot of albums. But again, you're talking to the guy that didn't put him in the top 25 of the Southern MCs list. But I feel like after '05, it was just a decline. You know what I'm saying? So with somebody like Gibbs, who's just been ascending for the past 5, 6, 7 years, it's no question. And bar for bar, it's no question. Jeezy has no Alfredo.
I mean, this is what I mean. He's making these out. It's hard making albums like this in succession. And so and here's what I would submit to you. Why we hold Kendrick so high? Well, he made Section 80, Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn. He made 4 great albums in a row. Now, I'm not saying all of those albums are classic. Okay? I'm not. Just like I'm not saying Freddie's run is all classic, but it's all great. And so if Soul Sold Separately is comparable to the 3 previous albums, doesn't he deserve some of that same attention and acclaim? And he's got other good projects, and everybody telling me that those other projects are like classic, they're not. They're dope. They're good. They show a lot of the promise.
Let me get to the super chats.
These last 3 albums ain't showing promise. He just out here whooping ass and taking names. And here's what I mean.
He's very competitive
much like Scarface.
Too.
What he does lyrically, much like Scarface in his prime, is not what was traditionally is accepted as being prime top-notch lyricism.
Right. Our man with the super chat says, "Peace. Freddie is creeping in my top 25 or 30. Don't forget he also released Shadow of Doubt. Freddie. Oh, I forgot about the Freddie album, and You Only Live Twice, and Fetty with Currency.
Yeah. I was thinking about the Freddie album, actually. The Freddie album is pretty dope.
Yeah, it is. Andrea Green with the $20 super chat. Appreciate that. Good looking. She says, went to the Nas and Wu show in Charlotte. Nas was in his B-side bag. He performed Take It in Blood, Silent Murder, Shootouts, Poison, Thief's Theme, and Get Down. Somebody's been watching the show, man. He even did some of I Can over the Wu-Tang for the Children beat. Yo, he's showing out, man. He's going to be in Atlanta tomorrow. We're going to make sure we represent it there, one way or another. That's crazy. Silent Murder? Somebody's
and Take It in Blood. Hold on. I was thinking.
Take It in Blood and Silent Murder.
No. Fuck that, Mike. I'm thinking about the Breath Control. It's like, you performing Take It in Blood and Silent Murder live? Like Breath Control live? Like, can you do that still? Like, is Raekwon punching into this nigga behind him?
Somebody got video of this, man? I want to see this. I'm sure it's
that's
out
what
there.
I'm saying. Like, the third verse to Take It in Blood and what is it? I think it's the second verse to Silent Murder. Like Breath Control wise, Mike.
They say the arms of Nicky Bonds would be enough to blast. Right. A lot of rich niggas fell and start pumping gas. Was this the mind of the CIA that bumped up Malik Shabazz? Fuck what they teach in class. I'm a reach the mass. Yeah, jab them, don't get no tactics. I don't know niggas get back backwards. So whether if the cat to smoke.
Yeah, how's he gonna do the second and third? How's he gonna do the second verse of Silent Murder and third verse of Take It in Blood live? That's why you don't hear some of that shit too, because it's like, oh shit, it was probably hard enough to just record that once.
Yo, man, goat shit. We're gonna get to that in a second. Back to Freddie real quick though. He's really building a legacy for himself, and he doesn't really seem like he's slowing down any. And I think somebody said y'all overrate Kendrick. Okay, you know what? I've heard people talk about that, and I've seen people talk about this for years. And maybe he's not talking about us when we say y'all overrate Kendrick, but you know what? What was it? A 6-year break, 5-year break, something like that. And this is what we get. If we don't get anything new soon to, kind of rectify some of our thoughts of where we thought Kendrick's trajectory was going, then yeah, maybe we have overrated Kendrick. We didn't overrate the albums, but maybe we overrated him, if that makes any sense.
this is okay. So this is exactly what I'm trying to say. Well, if Freddie Gibbs makes, four straight good to great, I'm not even good. If he makes four great to classic album status albums like four times in a row, isn't that what Kendrick did?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a better MC, but here's the thing about it is like, well, Mike, I don't think Ghostface is a better MC than KRS-One, but I have him ahead of KRS on my list. You feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Kendrick being the better MC doesn't mean he gets the all-time great placement. Because if that's the place, like Cool G Rap would be like 6, Mike. On everybody's list, at least. It's like he would fall no further than 6 if we're talking about lyrical capability and ability and actually rhyming and lyrical contextualizing words and putting them together in a format on the mic. You're not going to find 5 guys.
So what? I guess what ranks you overall is the music.
Correct.
Kendrick's one of the rare situations where it's albums that are put together very well, great albums. But
Right.
do the songs actually have individual legs on their own?